Oh. Satchidanandarupaya Vishvotpatyadihetave Tapatraya Vinashaya Shri Krishnaya Vayam Numaha. Janmadyasya yatonvayanti tarataschaarteshvabhignaswarat Tene brahmahradaya adikavaye muhyanti yatsurayaha Tejo vari mridam yatha vinimayo yatra trisargo mrisha Dhamna svena sada nirastakuhakam satyam param dhimahi Dharma projita kaitavotra paramo nirmatsaranam satam Vedyam vastavamatra vastu shivadam tapatrayonmulanam Shrimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kim va parerishwaraha Sadyo hridyavarudyate trakritibihi Shushrushabhistakshanat. With your eyes still closed. Bhagavad Gita teaches one the art of living. Srimad Bhagavatam teaches one the art of dying. Feel this art within yourself and radiate this art to all those who need such guidance, need such support. Hari Om, greetings from Niagara Falls. In Sanatana Dharma, our foundational map is known as the Veda. Veda means knowledge. Knowledge on life, knowledge on you. This is over 100,000 mantras. Srimad Bhagavatam is only 18,000 shlokas. And knowing the immensity of the Veda and the difficulty with navigating through 100,000 mantras, this has been volumized into 4 Vedas, around 25,000 mantras each. This too is immense. Bhagavad Gita's only 700 shlokas. And so, within each Veda, a Vakya, Veda, volume, Vakya. Vakya means statement, has been given importance as a Maha Vakya, a great statement. Whatever statements are shared about the jiva, that is the ego, are not known as Mahavakyas, or great statements. Whatever teachings are given about Brahman, or the infinite, are also not known as Mahavakyas. It is only those messages that share that Jiva is Brahman, the ego is infinite, is known as a Mahavakya, a great statement that reveals one's identity. I'm sharing this background with you. Srimad Bhagavatam, and particularly our course, Vedanta in Bhagavata, is a Mahavakya. We begin each class, we begin this course as a Jiva. But what is this class and course teaching us? That we are Bhagavan. We're immersing ourselves in a Mahavakya. Reviewing last week's class, Sri Uddhava, he has a trace of ego. And the source of this ego is jnana, his sense of esteem that comes from the knowledge he has. It is this trace ego with which he questions the gopis and even questions Bhagavan Krishna. Bhagavan Krishna, who's the master of all masters, for Sri Uddhava's welfare, sends him to Vrindavana, to Nandagrama, to be his ambassador for the gopas, the gopis. The gopis love to sing. Some of their Gitas that we've gone through, Venu Gita, Pranaya Gita, the Gita, which is Gopi Gita, Yugala Gita, Viraha Gita, and we just completed the Brahmara Gita. Sri Uddhava got to listen to Brahmara Gita and how the last verse, the last line shares how we miss and long for Bhagavan Krishna's hand on our heads. What Sri Uddhava came to understand and appreciate is that these gopis are engaged in samadhi. Samadhi, as a verb, is known as contemplation. Those in our Drigdrisha Viveka course, this is what I've been teaching. So they're engaged in that, but not only that, they've already completed contemplation. Samadhi also means, as a noun, when the ego is well and fully placed in the spirit. In other words, nirvana. The technical definition of nirvana means to blow out. To blow out the ego into infinity. Samadhi means contemplation. Samadhi also means liberation. The gopis are liberated. So what do? They're ever immersed in contemplation, not as a means, but rather as an expression. Think of Sri Ramana. With his eyes closed, do you think that he's contemplating as a means to being enlightened? His is not a means. His is an expression of enlightenment. We're all thinking like us too, yes? For us, it's a means. The gopis are the greatest. And that's why I've highlighted all of these Gitas. They're reveling. The word Rama means the one who revels in joy. A synonym for Rama is gopi, those who are reveling in joy. We continue. The 10th section, the 47th chapter, the 34th verse. 10, 47, 34. This is Bhagavan Krishna's message to the gopis. Remember, Sri Uddhava is his messenger. What did Bhagavan Krishna want Uddhava, Sri Uddhava, to share with the gopis? That's what's being shared now. Yat tvaham bhavati nam vai dure varte priyo drisham manasasannikarshartham mad anudhyana kamyaya. Yat tvaham bhavati nam vai dure varte priyo drisham. Priyo drisham, I know I'm your dear one. Sri Uddhava's sharing his message to the gopis. Bhagavan Krishna shares, I know I'm your Priya. And I am far away from you now. And he explains why. Manasa sannikarshartham, to bring your minds closer to you. Or shared differently, to bring your minds closer to me, because I live inside of you. Mat anudhyana kamyaya, this is the reason why I'm far from you, for you to engage in not dhyana, anudhyana, which means the closest contemplation. This again means liberation on me. Okay, so this is Sri Krishna's, this is Bhagavan Krishna's message. Some dialogue happens before this. After Sri Uddhava hears Brahmara Gita, remember he came in with this trace of ego. What he says to the gopis as a community, the whole world should adore you. They should adore you. After he sensed how much they love Bhagavan Krishna. Another awesome saying in this dialogue, you have no traditions. Essentially, he's sharing, you're illiterate, you don't know rituals, yet you have achieved what all traditions, all rituals are to achieve. This love for Bhagavan. Then he gets into sharing Bhagavan Krishna's message, which I just read to you. Bhagavan Krishna also shares with the gopis. The purpose of the Veda is to guide one's senses and mind to the spirit. There's a lot of elaboration on sense control, which also means mind control. And he compares this to the fulfillment of a river is to merge with the ocean. And he's sharing this with the gopis because they've completed that. All of their senses are only on Bhagavan Krishna. He shares the Viyoga. Viyoga means separation. That I've created between you and I is to test you, to encourage your yoga. Yoga means to unite. There's that common saying, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Did I say that correctly? So this Viyoga serves the purpose of yoga. Now comparing this to us, I find many students live by out of sight, out of mind. What does that Viyoga do? Creates more Viyoga rather than yoga. So Bhagavan Krishna, he's not really testing them. Who is he testing? He's testing us. The gopis are the greatest. They can't become greater. And he gives another example of how. If you remember, before the Rasa Leela began, Bhagavan Krishna was playing his flute, and many gopis came, but many gopis could not come because they were stopped within their own homes. Do you remember me sharing that with you? And what did those gopis do? They closed their eyes and contemplated on what's in their heart. And through that, they all became enlightened. They were all with Bhagavan Krishna. So he's sharing with these gopis that your friends, through this Viyoga, have become yukta. And I'm encouraging you to be the same way. So this is Bhagavan Krishna's message through Sri Uddhava to the gopis. When the gopis heard this, they became reflective. They became reflective on the nature around them. That was the mountain that our Bhagavan held up with his left hand little finger. That's Kalindi. That's where he dove in and was dancing on Kaliya. So they became reflective. They were feeling him more in their hearts. And they became reflective on what Sri Uddhava and Bhagavan Krishna shared, is that Bhagavan is Brahman. Bhagavan is infinite. So is he really separate from the gopis? He never was and never will be. It is such reflections that made the gopis less sad, made them miss Bhagavan Krishna less. I have found in a very practical way, when someone you care for is no longer with you, the final way to go on cheerfully is such insights. That everyone's spirit is the same, everyone's minds are on the trajectory for evolution, then you feel less sad, you miss them less. Sri Uddhava was so taken aback by the gopis that he stayed in Nandagrama for many months. He was only supposed to go as a messenger, but he himself started learning so much about bhakti that he stayed there for many months. And this really softened the gopis again in their sadness and missing, because through Sri Uddhava, they kept on remembering Bhagavan Krishna. In these many months, when bhaktas are with bhaktas, what do? They speak about Bhagavan. So Sri Uddhava shares some more insights about the gopis. He describes them as having Rudha Bhava. Please remember that. Rudha Bhava. I'm not saying rude. Rudha Bhava, which is also known as Mahabhava, which is also known as oneness. In the gopis, he came to understand and appreciate what oneness is, what Advaita is. He says many people in life have better positions than you, as in the gopis. Some are brahmanas, some are Ranis, etc. But that position doesn't help them because they don't have the intensity that you all have. And that is a lovely statement for all of us. We can be illiterate. We can have nothing to do with India. But what matters is intensity. What a universal message. Very empowering. He continues to share. Others have a lot of learning. They know this Upanishad, they know this mantra in Sanskrit. But that doesn't help them with surrender. Sri Uddhava was sort of like that, correct? That trace of ego. The gopis, they may not know the Upanishads or Sanskrit, but they do know Sanskrit because all of these Gitas are in Sanskrit. But the point is, all of this should lead one to surrender. And he finally shares with them, you have engaged in parityaga. Parityaga. And this is often shared at the end of Bhagavad Gita. Tyaga means to renounce. Pari means all. What does it mean to renounce all? It means renouncing otherness or dvaita. This is what the gopis have done. There's nothing for them to renounce. Yes? Like when you're with yourself, there's nothing to fear. As soon as your family members come into your horizon, there's lots to fear. And what he does then, he worships the dust of the feet of the gopis. Some of these gopis are little girls. And I share that, like, imagine me taking the dust from Vyasa's feet. See, he puts that on my head anyways, but imagine me consciously doing that. The same Sri Uddhava that questioned them is now worshipping the dust of their feet. And then he goes back to Bhagavan Krishna. He returns to Mathura, and Bhagavan goes like this. And imagine Bhagavan just sarcastically smiling. What happened? What did you learn? And he gave him all of this news. One more lovely completion of this before we shift to another temperament. In the Vaishnava Sampradaya, this is a tradition of those who love Bhagavan Narayana only. Okay? This is not Vivek, this is not Chinmaya Mission. I'm only giving you a reference. Vaishnava Sampradaya. They are taught and they feel there is only one Purusha in the entire multiverse, and that is Bhagavan Krishna. And everyone else is a Devi or a Stri. So Vivek is a Stri. Now, you all know biologically that I'm a male, but the idea is, my sentiment is that I am married to Bhagavan Krishna. Everyone is. Clear? So what had happened was, Devi Meera, the Devi Meera, she had interacted with one who's supposed to be a scholar about Bhagavatam, about Bhagavan Krishna. And when she had come to this learned person, he said, I don't interact with Devis. I don't interact with women. And what she said back to him was, I thought there was only one Purusha in the world, but now I realize there's two. There's Bhagavan Krishna and you. Correct? Because for her, there's only one man, but all of a sudden he's establishing himself as a man also. And when he heard that, he was completely leveled. Yes, we are all Devis, and there's only one Deva. We continue to chapter 48, verse 34. 48, 34. Bhagavan Krishna is speaking to Akrura. Do you remember Akrura wanted Bhagavan Krishna to come to his home? Bhagavan never forgets anything. So now he does go to his home. Again, chapter 48, verse 34. And this is a really introductory verse. Let me read it to you. Teshu Rajambika Putraha Bhratra Putreshu Dinadihi Samo Navartate Nunam Dushputra Vashagondradrik. Bhagavan Krishna says to Akrura, Raja Ambika Putra. Who is Ambika's Putra? The Raja that is Dhritarashtra. Bhratra Putreshu Dina Dihi, and Raja Dhritarashtra's brother, that is Pandu, his children are Dina Dihi. They're in a tough position. However, Samona Vartate Nunam, this Raja Dhritarashtra doesn't treat them, that is the sons of Pandus, in the same way that he treats his own family. Specifically, why is this happening? Dushputra. Because of his rotten children, that is Duryodhana, Vasha have controlled him. Gondadrik, he's not just blind physically, he is blind emotionally, meaning he's attached. So Bhagavan Krishna is with Akrura, essentially telling him, go find out what's happening in Hastinapura. How cool the overlapping of Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. So Bhagavan is sharing this in Akrura's home, but before he got there, here's what happened. Who else did Bhagavan Krishna promise that he would come to her home? Do you remember her name was, or she was known as Trivakra, the one who was curved in three ways, the one who got the facelift, remember? She's also known as Sairandri. Sairandri. Now here's a quiz for you. Who else is very popularly known as Sairandri? Sairandri means the good. Sairandri means the servant or the handmaid of the queen. At one point, Devi Draupadi was also known as Sairandri. Okay? So Bhagavan Krishna, with Shri Uddhava, goes to her home. She had given him Chandan, so he's coming back to her home to repay her as if. And she has this amazing seat for Bhagavan Krishna to sit on. And then she offers a seat to Shri Uddhava also. He's such a disciple. He just touches that seat and then sits on the floor, because he feels he can never sit at the same level as Bhagavan Krishna. Many of you have heard me or say or explain to you why I don't speak to Guruji Swami Tejomayananda in first person. Why I do so in third person? Because we're not at the same level. So I wanted to share that detail with you. And Bhagavan Krishna asks Sairandri, what do you want? And what does she ask for? Pleasure. She asks Bhagavan to share with her pleasure. And what this shows is that Bhagavan can give mukti, but where is her mind? On bhukti. Bhukti mukti pradatacha. Bhagavan, the Guru, can give whatever you want, but if our thoughts are limited, all we'll ask for is that which is limited. In comparison now, and this is so amazing how Rishi Vyasa has written Bhagavatam, you have this Rajasic temperament, I want pleasure, but then shifts over to, Bhagavan goes to Akrura's home. And when he arrives at Akrura's home, Akrura calls Bhagavan Krishna Sarva Deva Sarva Pitra. You are the God of all. You are the original parent. You know, I use that phrase so often. Here is your, technicality. Sarva Pitra. This is your reference. I want to read to you in detail another lovely sentiment from Akrura in English. It is not that holy waters, tirthas, are not purifying. It is not also that divine images made of stone or mud are not sacred. The purification they effect is, however, attainable only in the course of a very long time, but holy personages effected at sight. So share differently. One can go to Tirtha Yatras, one can have darshan of Bhagavan at a mandir, but the most effective way for one to become purified is to see satsanga. Because if you see it, you will be drawn to that satsanga and you will change. Akrura calls Bhagavan Krishna Kritagnya, the one who is ever grateful. Akrura did so little for him, but see how grateful Bhagavan is. And what Akrura asks for is mukti. Sairandri, she wants bhukti. Akrura asks for mukti. Now, wrapping up this portion, the more that we know of our Sadguru, of our Shastras, of our Bhagavan, the less we'll expect of them and the more we will expect of ourselves. Please reflect on that. The less you know about your Sadguru, the more you'll expect of her and the less you'll expect of yourself. Like Sairandri. But the more you know your Sadguru, she can give you bhukti, but she can also give you mukti. You expect less from her and you expect more from yourself. This is a fine gauge for you to track your own evolution. And for the sake of giving you a framework, very specifically, you will know that you're expecting more of yourself when you are engaged in less annotating. Annotating means excusing, coming up with excuses. Less blaming. Blaming others, blaming the weather, blaming God, and less complaining. There's another ABC for you, correct? Annotating, blaming, complaining. If all of that is less in your life, that shows you know more about your Sadguru, more about Shastra, more about Bhagavan. After this exchange between Bhagavan Krishna and Akrura, Bhagavan Krishna asks Akrura to go to Hastinapura, which is near Delhi, present-day Delhi, near there. And he shares with him that when Pandu died, Pandu's family was living with Dhritarashtra, and I know that Dhritarashtra is not treating them the way he's treating his own family. Go and find out how the Pandavas are. This is what he asks Akrura. And so now another scene of Bhagavatam is about to shift. Oh.